This fairy, with a stunning appearance, is as beautiful as a painting, and her immortal bones are naturally formed. Why are you willing to wallow in the dust amidst these 3,000 mortal realms? Why not cut off all 3,000 threads of troubles and stand alone by the green lanterns and ancient Buddha? How joyful! He clasped his hands and looked at the beauty in front of him with a kind expression. Keywords of the novel. I am not the Tathagata without pop-ups, I am not the Tathagata. Download the full text of the Tathagata. I am not the Tathagata's latest chapter to read. Chapter 1. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Wedge 1 Tai Shang Lao Jun is as sick as a law, and the Tathagata Buddha is on my body. In a small village, on the lush soil, there were several dilapidated thatched cottages facing a middle-aged woman with an unhappy face. Sweating between her forehead, she tried her best to create a ghostly animal-like appearance, muttering words in her mouth. Boom! As soon as the words fell, a thunderbolt appeared out of thin air and hit him fiercely. Ah! The sharp scream of the middle-aged woman spread far and wide. The ancient road at dusk is filled with continuous rain and darkness. A carriage slowly arrived from the ancient road, with waves of chilly wind mixed with cold raindrops hitting the wooden window. The carriage moved slowly and steadfastly in the mud, with a slightly chubby boy of 7 or 8 years old sitting in the carriage with his eyes closed, his body swaying with the carriage, his breathing heavy, and he had fallen asleep. A burst of crying awakened him from his slumber. The voice is low and weak. The boy opened his eyes and knocked on the door of the carriage. The caravan stopped, and he pulled back the curtains and looked out the window. Beside the ancient road, cold and rainy, there was a young figure half lying faintly, but upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a young girl of 4 or 5 years old, thin like a thin cat, half lying on top of an already stiff corpse, making a faint sound. The little girl in my eyes has fallen into extreme hunger and cold. That voice was just his most instinctive struggle and survival. Before losing consciousness, he seemed to notice something and tried to open his eyes, looking towards where the sound came from. The last thing that stayed in her consciousness was a young and kind face. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. I used to be a Buddha before. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. I used to be a Buddha before a 15 or 16-year-old boy leaned on a charred rattan chair, staring blankly at his own grape trellis, a feeling of laziness emanating from him. Ah, I've gained 5 pounds more. He touched his round face, as if he was a little dissatisfied. A gentle breeze blew away a few yellow papers on the table, with bright red letters flying with the wind, covering the entire courtyard. It's still not possible. If you don't become a martial artist, you won't be able to do it. Your energy is not strong, and your spiritual skills are not pure. How can you make talismans? He smiled bitterly at the corner of his mouth. When he first came out of this world, he learned that martial arts were the main way of life and that he was still the son of a Marquis of Wu. He was overjoyed for several years. But when it was time to practice martial arts, he realized that it was not as simple as he had imagined. To cultivate martial arts, which one doesn't require hard work. Practicing 39 in winter, practicing 3 in summer, and practicing medicine washing and internal cultivation. In terms of their level of hard work, it far exceeds their previous academic achievements. In my previous life, I was lazy and had mediocre qualifications. In the end, I became a god and made a living by cheating. Do I really hope to become a new person in this life? It doesn't exist. He is still that lazy prodigy. The only thing better than his previous life is that he gave birth to a wealthy and noble family, even a great fortune and noble family, the son of Marquis Wu. Yes, he is a traveler who has been traveling to this world for almost 16 years. In the previous world, he was a deceitful fake Taoist, and in this world, his illegitimate son Yu He, the Marquis of Southern Chuyang. As for why did a person who was invited by a godly stick end up taking someone else's body? Do we still need a theoretical foundation for traversal? This is a very realistic world, where Marquis Wu has more than one son. The family of Marquis Wu is not limited to the lineage of Marquis Wu. The Iron Wall Yu family is a southern Chu aristocratic family with many children, and the competition is naturally very fierce. Your qualifications are mediocre, and you cannot bear the hardships of practicing martial arts. Naturally, you cannot compete with others. Family can make you rich and prosperous throughout your life, and you do not need to be like a god in the previous life to deceive others. It can be considered worthy of your bloodline as a Marquis Wu and your identity as a traveler. On the surface, the above facts may seem true, but ultimately there are some differences. The attitude of Marquis Yengu towards him was somewhat strange. Although everything seemed normal on the surface, as a seasoned prodigy, he always felt strange. Of course, it is also possible that a prodigy in his 30s suddenly became accustomed to being the son of a middle-aged man in his 40s. This is a world full of martial arts and flourishing martial arts. As the illegitimate son of Marquis Yengu, although only an illegitimate son, he also possesses resources that ordinary people cannot imagine. It can be said that his starting point is much higher than others. But there was nothing he could do, but after learning about the martial arts cultivation system in this world, he became completely decadent. He is very interested in martial arts, but cultivation starts from the most basic level. Even with resources that ordinary people cannot imagine, envy, and hate, Yang Wuho Mansion has a brilliant inheritance of martial arts. However, the pain of cultivation is not something that an ordinary person can feel. These pains are not just something to write about in words, they need to be experienced firsthand. Just as in the past, with the development of online information, various knowledge textbooks, and even learning steps, images and videos, can be found online, from beginners to advanced, and then to advanced levels. As long as you are willing, you can receive inheritance, but how many can truly stand at the top? From elementary school to middle school to university, under the rule of a complete education system, with the supervision of parents and teachers, how many people can truly learn and succeed in the end? In the almost nanny-style high-pressure education system, he did not succeed. You asked him to practice the martial arts in winter and summer in the relaxed environment without any pressure, practicing the 3-9 and 3-fu periods, washing medicine and practicing inner cultivation day by day, constantly pursuing the inexplicable end of the martial arts path. At the beginning, there may have been some interest, but over time, I couldn't bear the pain anymore. This interest evolved into a burden, and in the end, I perfunctorily handled it, naturally becoming a playboy. He was already an extremely lazy person, lacking both perseverance and perseverance. Therefore, after studying for 16 years, he only studied flower boxing and leg embroidery, without even stepping into the door of martial arts. As for the art of literature, it is even more so. If literature does not become martial arts, it is a typical dandy. The only advantage is that he has at least decades of experience in dealing with people in his past life, and doesn't act like a real playboy. So, even among playboys, they don't stand out, the mediocre generation among playboys. Oh my goodness, it's unfair. Why? I also wear it when others wear it. They have golden fingers, and I also have golden fingers. Why can their golden fingers kill all directions, have big gift packages, win big prizes, and even participate in monthly lucky draws? But what about mine being so unattainable? Yes, he is also a player with a golden finger, and the reason why he was able to cross is also because of his golden finger. His golden fingers are quite unique, and to explain it in a simple sentence, he was worshipped by the Buddha. This golden finger is too high-end, and it can even be said that it makes him stand on high ground. Its help to him can be said to be minimal, like placing a golden mountain in front of him. Unfortunately, he cannot move it, nor do he have tools to knock down a piece. He can only watch the golden mountain drool every day. How many meanings does this mean? Of course, this little help gave him hope and allowed him to see the scenery on the mountaintop. Alas! Take your time, there will always be opportunities. As long as you give me the chance to create the first magic weapon, I don't have to worry about anything, he comforted himself to himself. This is a world where martial arts thrive, but martial arts are not unique. There are still divine weapons and treasures in this world. It is a world where martial arts, magic weapons, and divine weapons complement each other. This is also the reason why he did not collapse, because his golden fingers correspond to magic treasures and divine weapons. The Buddha's relics, the main culprit of his travels, carry the fundamental method of the Buddha's lineage, the treasure refining technique, which dominates all realms with great power. Dominating the world, the treasure refining technique terrifying. There is a bird to use, and refining magic treasures and divine weapons is also conditional. In this world, the spiritual mechanism is obscure, and divine powers are not displayed. The threshold for making talismans and refining treasures is far higher than that of martial arts. Treasures and divine weapons are rooted in runes, which are engraved on specific items through specific techniques to steal the divine mechanisms of heaven and earth, thus forming treasures and divine weapons. Martial arts, magic weapons, and divine weapons constitute the mainstream system of this world. This is a world without a master. This is a world without a master. This is a world without a master. Say important things 3 times. This world has divine weapons and treasures, but there is no master or magic, only a master of talismans. The so-called master of talismans is the person who understands talismans, and talismans cannot directly harm people or form spells. They can only be used through the medium of divine weapons and treasures. The talismans are mysterious, with a very high threshold for entry, making it difficult to learn and master. Even among millions of people, it may not be possible to encounter someone who understands the talismans, but it is only passed down in small circles. It's really difficult for you to make symbols now, which is equivalent to letting a high school math student who failed to pass the exam go to work on the Mars landing project in my Qing dynasty. So, this road is also not feasible, at least temporarily, it needs an opportunity. The flying runes in the sky are a testament. Through the memories in the Tathagata relics, he can easily record the complete runes of the present world, but cannot evoke spirits. They are just worthless abstract paintings. Non-worldly runes, also known as runes that are passed down from the Tathagata relics and are universally accessible, can be burned. These runes from the Tathagata relics can even ignore the rules of this world. Once formed, they can automatically draw spirits, but unfortunately, it still cannot be done. Firstly, these runes are very powerful and cannot be carried without a suitable medium. Whether it is paper, stone, wood, or even metal, they cannot carry runes. Even if a rune is completely burned on these things, it will quickly explode. Secondly, the reason why these runes do not require spiritual inspiration is that after they are formed, they can autonomously extract their spiritual power to attract spirits. If one of them fails, they will drain their spiritual power and become a vegetative person, so they dare not act recklessly. What he can do is to use the earth as a carrier and practice over and over again, because the runes directly burned on the earth cannot have any effect. The only effect is to be able to continuously practice and become familiar with these primitive runes, gradually improve and purify his spiritual power. Without him, only hands are familiar. The original runes were burned on the ground, even if they were not effective, they could extract a portion of his spiritual power and also hone his spiritual power. This was a last resort, because besides this method, he did not understand other ways to enhance his spiritual power. This method, simple and direct, is also the easiest way for him to achieve improvement today. The Buddha's relics may sound intimidating, but what they bring to him is just a treasure refining technique, and the treasure refining technique is another big pit. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Sure enough, cultivating that everything is deceitful. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Sure enough, cultivating that everything is deceitful, young master, are you planning to marry me? Suddenly, a delicate, round face, even larger than his own, suddenly appeared in his line of sight. Puff. He took a sip of tea and sprayed it all out. He suddenly sat up from the wicker chair, lifted his head, and looked straight at the innocent, curious, and thirsty eyes that came towards him. What are you saying? I said, do you have feelings for me and want to marry me? The little girl's round face turned crimson, her fingers twisted the corners of her clothes, and her posture was a bit awkward. Why do you have such strange thoughts? He pointed his trembling fingers at the little girl, and out of the corner of his eye, he looked around but didn't notice anyone else. He felt a bit flustered in his heart. They just asked you if it's true. The sound is very pleasant, and the long and melodious notes are also very sweet, but no, really not, Barbell. I've always treated you like a younger sister. After holding it back for a while, the seventh young master of the Yang Wuho family finally uttered a classic line from a scumbag. Humph. Upon hearing this, Linger's face changed and she slapped the table in front of her. Bang! With a muffled sound, dust splattered everywhere, and the small stone table was torn apart. The little girl's eyebrows stood on end, filled with righteous indignation. Since you haven't taken a liking to me, why did you stop Brother Lu from marrying me? Brother Lu. He felt that all the goosebumps on his body were about to fall off. Who is Brother Lu? Brother Han Lu, ah. Han Lu. Yuhi's mouth twitched again as he looked up and down at the little girl in front of him, who told you that Han Lu is going to marry you. What they are looking for is Xiaoqiang from Xian's room. Impossible, Brother Lu must have chosen me. The last time I met him, he even smiled at me. That's because he's afraid you'll beat him up. He sighed in his heart the three major illusions in life. He likes me, I can fight back, and my phone is ringing. Linger, you are still young. You will understand this matter in the future. Han Lu did indeed choose Xiaoqiang, and they are in love with each other. As for you. How can I say that? If there is no candidate for you, will you be beaten? Isn't it that I'm leaving the mansion now? Father thinks you can stay by my side and take care of me, so this time, you haven't been included in the list at all, he said, wiping his forehead with sweat. Really? The girl looked at Yuhi half doubtfully. Just then, a strange fragrance drifted over. Yuhi and the girl sniffed twice at the same time, and their eyes shifted from the grape trellis. The meat stew is ready, young master, I'm going to eat it. The girl exclaimed joyfully, jumping towards the direction of the kitchen, as if she had completely forgotten the scene just now and her Brother Lu. A 13 or 14-year-old girl in emerald clothes, in the prime of her youth, bounced towards the kitchen, her big eyes flickering with excitement, holding a red handkerchief in her hand, swaying and swaying. Oh, lowly, it's so difficult for me to cultivate it. He stood up, sighed, shook his body, and walked towards the kitchen. The wonderful afternoon tea time had arrived again. Mediocrity, laziness, gluttony, this is the impression that everyone in Yenwu Marquis' mansion has of this inconspicuous illegitimate young master. This is a normal world, as well as a world with strict hierarchy. Although it is only a commoner and has a low status in the government, it cannot compare to those legitimate sons. However, like countless travel novels, there will not be any strange incidents of slaves bullying their masters. Also, because he was a commoner with limited abilities and mediocre performance, he was not valued and naturally did not get involved in some of the chaotic things in the Yang Wu Marquis mansion. In the true eyes of the core of Yang Wuho mansion, he is a little transparent. No one values him, so naturally his demands are not high, and his personality is developed in this way. In fact, his current state is very much like the ultimate survival state he longed for in his previous life. As a salary thief, his life is even more comfortable than a salary thief, because even a salary thief needs to work. He doesn't even have to work, just eats and sleeps every day. Every month, he has a lot of silver coins to hold, and there are maids and servants to serve him. Is there any happier life than this? So he basically fell, or rather fell for more than half, lost his way in such a free, and decadent aristocratic life. Walking to the door, the meat aroma became increasingly strong. Not bad. He smiled contentedly and looked up at the girl in green clothes. We've made progress this time. We didn't take action in advance, but when we smell it, the heat is still a bit short. We need to wait for a quarter of an hour to make the meat taste perfect. Oh. The girl thought for a moment, but didn't say much. She just twisted her waist and squeezed into the kitchen door, causing the doors on both sides to creak. This is his personal maid, Linger. He never expected that the delicate girl he found on the roadside, like a cat, would grow into an 8-foot tall and 8-foot waist girl after being raised by his side for 10 years. This cardamom is the cardamom in the giant catcher. Sure enough, the cultivation in legends is all deceiving. Fortunately, although people are raised crookedly, they are at least very obedient. 15 minutes later, Linger lifted the lid of the pot and a large pot of steaming stewed meat appeared before their eyes, blurring their vision. Young master, I won't be polite. Seeing the meat, Linger's eyes lit up, and she didn't know where to find a large ocean bowl that was half the size of that pot. With a hula sound, she picked up all the fat inside, and in the blink of an eye, most of the meat in the pot had already gone. How many times have I told you? Don't rush, don't grab, there's no one here to grab meat from you. Yuhi sighed helplessly, stroking his forehead. I know, but when I see meat, I want to eat it. At this moment, Linger's mouth was already filled with meat. Upon hearing Yuhi's words, she felt embarrassed and said, also, young master, when you cook, it tastes better than others. Of course, your young master and I have been wandering in the martial arts world for many years. This kind of stewed meat is so small. Suddenly, his face changed and he squatted down. One hand fanned in front of him, clearing away the mist in front of him. What's wrong, young master? Oh. Ling Er swallowed the meat wrapped in her mouth and asked in confusion. What is this thing? Yuhi stared straight at the white corner exposed in the pot, reached out his chopsticks, and pushed away the surrounding meat. A burnt white bone appeared in front of the two. This is a meat bone. Ling Er looked at the bone that Yuhi had picked up, feeling even more puzzled. The stewing time is too long. It's normal to separate some meat and bones, isn't it? Normal fart, this is braised, how could there be such a white bone? Yuhi said angrily, slowly pinching the pure white jade-like bone in front of him and repeatedly examining it. Although Ling Er was puzzled, she didn't say anything. She held a large bowl filled with stewed meat and stood beside he, eating while watching Yuhi's movements. Yuhi had already held the bone in his hand, held it up in front of him, and looked at the sunlight carefully for a while before suddenly asking, where did this meat come from? Oh, this is a rare wild boar sent by Zhuangzi from Mingfu Mountain. A rare wild boar. Yeah, it's a big wild boar. Linger gestured with great effort, and Yuhi felt like she was gesturing at herself. Well, I heard that there were over 20 strong men in the village who had to put in a lot of effort to take down this wild boar. This pig head was given to me by Grandpa Sunday. Grandpa Sun, your name is Sun Chi. One of the external butlers of Yengu Marquis' mansion, specifically responsible for the harvest of various industries scattered throughout Yengu Marquis' mansion. Ming Fushan is one of the fiefs of Yengu Marquis' mansion, and whether it is planted on the ground, running on the ground, or swimming in the water, it must pass through the hands of Sun Chi. I don't know why, but Sun Chi and Ling Er are very compatible, almost doting on each other like granddaughters. When there is something good, the first thing that comes to mind is Ling Er, which also gives Yuhi a lot of advantages. It is said that this wild boar is only slightly thicker and stronger, and there seems to be nothing special about it. That's why Sun Chi would send this wild boar head over to his goddaughter for a tooth offering. This way. Yuhi nodded, feeling clear in his heart. I found a loophole myself. That's it then. You eat it first, don't throw away the bones you spit out. You'll wash them clean and send them to my room. I'm referring to white bones. Why? Don't ask so many questions. Yu's voice trembled slightly. He put away the bones in his hand, turned around and left. Before leaving the door, he warned again, remember, don't throw away a single white bone, understand? Oh. Ling is also a person with a broad heart and a chubby body. Seeing Yu-He without explanation or asking too many questions, she just remembered Yu-He's words. After a happy feast. Start tidying up those bones. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Opening of the Road to Heaven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Opening of the Road to Heaven. The night is vast, the stars are lonely, and the bright moon is in the sky. A lamp is like a beam, its shadow swaying under the dim lighting inside the room. Delicate fingers gently caressed the bones in front of them. If I'm not mistaken, these patterns should be spiritual patterns. I can't believe this is a demon beast that is about to evolve. The so-called spiritual patterns are actually naturally generated runes, which is not a secret in the Panwu continent. Creatures with spiritual patterns are naturally powerful and even capable of generating wisdom, possessing spirituality no less than that of humans. They are called demon beasts in the Panwu continent, and those tamed by humans and serving humans are called spirit beasts. In other words, the wild boar that they cooked was actually a monster, but its ability was not good, so it was unlucky to be caught, skinned and eaten meat. Monsters with spiritual patterns may sound powerful, but the word monster actually has the same ghostly appearance as a warrior, with a division of strength like a heavenly moat. The spiritual patterns in front of us don't look many, nor are they large or complete. In addition, the owner of the spiritual patterns was caught by more than a dozen manners, indicating that this is only the lowest level, even a newly generated spiritual pattern, and has not fully evolved as a demon beast. This will make him cheaper. The bone in his hand should be a part of his skull. Although it appears somewhat incomplete, it can still distinguish the attributes of spiritual patterns and strengthen the skin membrane. This is also the most common sequence in the evolution process of most demon beasts, first strengthening the skin and membrane, followed by muscles and bones, chi and blood, completing the evolution of the body, forming unique divine powers, and finally giving birth to wisdom. To put it simply, this wild boar is actually just a little thicker skinned. Calling it a monster can be considered a way to elevate him. Under the light, several messy pieces of broken bones scattered on the tabletop in orange-brown. These were selected by Yu-He from a pile of bones, with spiritual patterns on them. In addition to the pure white skull fragment, there were also 6 pieces of different sizes and shapes, all of which were bones with spiritual patterns. However, compared to that skull, some were even more incomplete, and some were even newly formed. But that's not important. What's important is the quality of these bones, which can carry spiritual patterns. That's enough. After a long period of contemplation, Yu-He opened his eyes and slowly calmed down his excited heart, bringing one of the seemingly smooth broken bones to his face. Extend your hand and gently caress the broken bones, feeling them with your skin and the faint spiritual text on them that is almost imperceptible. In my mind, a striped path emerged, interweaving a mysterious pattern. Yu-He's gaze became deep. He gently put down the broken bones, picked up a thin needle and pen, and lightly tapped the tip of the needle. Along the original patterns on the broken bones, he began to outline a series of fine and complex lines. The lines gradually increased and intertwined with the original spiritual patterns on the broken bones, gradually moving towards the pattern in his mind. After about half an hour, the surface of the broken bones was already covered with fine lines, and Yu-He's forehead began to be covered with fine beads of sweat. At this moment, he felt his spirit becoming increasingly weak, as if he had not slept for several days, and even his eyes became somewhat blurred. The needle and pen in his hand hovered for a while, and he rubbed his astringent eyes. The needle and pen fell down again, and after some time, he finally completed the last stroke. Sweat soaked his whole body, and he felt as if he had been pulled out of the water. He sat up straight, his eyes bright and focused, and the broken bones on the table also underwent a strange change at this moment. The originally stationary broken bones began to tremble softly, with faint buzzing sounds spreading all around. He could even feel the surrounding air flowing in this moment. A fresh breeze suddenly rises, arrives suddenly, and then disappears. Suddenly, the fine lines covered in broken bones appeared in a very subtle way, but there was a noticeable silver light. The silver light flowed along the lines like flowing water, like 100 rivers returning to the sea, converging at the center of the bone-shattering spiritual pattern. Suddenly, it flickered and disappeared like fireworks. At the moment when the spiritual light disappeared, a light gray stream of light shot out of the broken bones and into Yuhi's forehead. With a light "pa" sound, broken bones split apart and scattered on the table, and the color also turned gray, as if weathered. As Yuhi sat upright, his body trembled slightly. After the gray light shot into his forehead, it began to merge into his bones, followed by a tingling sensation that slowly spread from his forehead to his entire body. A strange feeling filled his whole body, and his muscles and bones began to twist. His fists clenched tightly, and fine beads of sweat welled up again. Along with it, there were also strands of black, foul-smelling bodily fluids. This feeling lasted for about a quarter of an hour before disappearing. He then stood up and stretched lazily. With his movements, his bones began to snap like fried beans, and his body grew a few inches taller. Comfortable. After lazing around, he felt no discomfort in his whole body. Sure enough, the advancement of the travelers still relies on their golden fingers and diligent cultivation, all of which are evil ways. 10 years of cultivation, I haven't had such a refreshing experience yet. Shaking his hands, he saw the dark sweat and, somewhat regretfully, glanced at the broken bones on the table. He then swept them into the trash can and collected the remaining 6 pieces of broken bones, tidying up everything in an orderly manner. Then his body shook and he stretched out like a spirit ape, rushing into the courtyard with a fierce thrust. Hu fist stands up and moves like a shadow, with movements like the wind, changing fists into grabs. The strong wind tears apart every step taken, leaving a shallow footmark on the hard ground. After a few breaths, his movements gradually slow down, and sometimes even with each punch, kick, or step, he pauses for a moment, pondering for a while. Is this kid going to break through? Outside the courtyard, a figure appeared silently. Watching Yuhi's movements, he nodded slightly. Although Yuhi's movements were slow, they were not inexperienced, but rather calibrated his own movements. Every movement was striving for standards, transforming himself into a spiritual ape. The Spirit Ape Foundation Building Fist is a top-notch foundation building fist technique inherited by the Marquis Yang Wu Mansion. Although it is only a commoner, it is on the same starting line as all the Marquis Mansion's children in terms of foundation building fist technique. Unfortunately, they have already reached the finish line, and he has only just begun. With the gradual calibration of his boxing posture, he felt his movements becoming smoother and more comfortable. Each punch became more even, and his strength gradually formed a whole. His muscles and bones were mobilized, and the scattered strength was concentrated. The chaotic and scattered strength became neat and harmonious, and each force turned into a trickle, ultimately returning to the sea. With a loud bang, it seemed as if something had exploded in his mind. In this moment, his whole body's strength was condensed into a whole, no longer separated from each other. Breaking through. The middle-aged man outside the courtyard raised his eyebrows, somewhat surprised, but also seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, he let out a light sigh and shook his head before leaving. It's only now that I'm enlightened, don't you think it's too late? Breaking through. Yuhi didn't notice anyone outside the courtyard. He slowly withdrew his fists and a relieved smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The next moment, he looked up and shouted loudly, "Someone, young master, I need to take a shower." The martial arts of Panwu continent are divided into 3 levels and 9 levels. Forging the body is the lower realm, qi and blood are the middle realm, and controlling qi is the upper realm. Each realm is divided into 3 levels, namely broken realm, small achievement, and great achievement, hence the saying of 9 levels. Above the 9th grade, one is the master. Nowadays, there are thousands of martial artists in the world, and there are only a few masters. Only by forging and breaking through the realm can one truly embark on the path of martial arts and be qualified to be called a first-class martial artist, while the rest are all miscellaneous items. Although it is only a 1st grade, it is already qualified to be called a warrior. The state of physical fitness, as the name suggests, mainly involves exercising and strengthening one's body. When one's body is not strong, everything is illusory. To strengthen one's body, one needs to work hard and accumulate a large amount of resources. A dual approach is the right path. It goes without saying that he gave up and hibernated for more than 10 years because he couldn't bear the hardships of hard cultivation. And resource accumulation involves refining one's body with various rare medicinal herbs, not only externally but also internally. External washing relies on medicinal baths, while internal washing relies on pills. This is not something that ordinary people can afford, which is why there is the saying of being poor in literature and rich in martial arts. Of course, in the absence of resources, one can also cultivate their body through the correct methods, but this requires much more suffering and longer time. All these skilled warriors are those with strong wills and perseverance. He is definitely not possible. Fortunately, his golden fingers can finally be used. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Alchemy Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Alchemy Technique. Sitting at the table, he looked at the crystal-clear shattered bone on his right hand, lost in thought. 7 animal bones with spiritual patterns fell on his hand. After some carving, all 6 broken bones shattered and lost their spirituality. Among them, the precious energy was used to strengthen his body and consolidate his current state. Only this one piece, after the loss of the precious energy, still contains some spirituality. Unfortunately, even if we keep it, we can only use it once or twice at most. He let out a light sigh and finally understood some of the emotions of Taoist duobao back then. Using a red rope, the broken bone was strung together and hung around the neck. Even if it can only be used once or twice, it is still a magic weapon. No, it cannot be called a magic weapon. At most, it can only be called a bone talisman. However, even so, this ancient talisman indicates its effectiveness and usage period. If it is put outside, it can be sold for at least 50,000 taels of silver, and it is still a priceless one. The martial arts system of Pangu continent is complete and rigorous, but the talismans seem to be incomplete. Compared to martial arts with a complete inheritance and strict system, the inheritance of talismans is extremely scattered and incomplete, so it is not very prominent in front of people. The only place in the world that can forge divine weapons is the West Chin sword casting workshop, but there are not many that have been passed down. The power of magic weapons and divine weapons is enormous, but limited in quantity. Most of them are only used by various forces to suppress Qi Yun. The talismanship and status can also be considered transcendent, but it only serves as an auxiliary role. Besides, there is no such thing as magical powers. There is no magical power, but there are scattered divine weapons and treasures, and the art of refining treasures can also be used here. It seems that this world has cut off the inheritance of refining weapons and making treasures, which is why it is suppressed by martial arts. This is not necessarily a bad thing for He. In this world where magic treasures are scarce, even small magic tools with limited number of times in his hands can sell astronomical numbers outside. If others are not aware of the frequency limit, they can still sell at a higher price. Of course, for someone who has mastered the treasure refining technique, a small magical tool is nothing. The real benefit lies in their own martial arts skills. This treasure refining code is known as no treasure without refining, but it is the fundamental method of multi-treasure in essence. This is his way to refine himself. In the name of refining, it is true to steal the essence of the magic weapon to strengthen himself. Therefore, all the essence of the refined magic weapon has been strengthened by him. Even if the magic weapon is shaped, it cannot be used twice, and it can only be a defective product. Use the magic essence to refine your body. Finally, Duo Bao refined the strongest body in the flood. Even if I later entered Buddhism, my physical strength was still the highest in Buddhism. The treasure refining technique is divided into two parts. The refining technique and the treasure technique. Refining technique is a method used by Buddha to prove his teachings. Unfortunately, due to its high end, he cannot practice it now because this great technique treats himself as a magic weapon to refine, and can only be verified after possessing his own spiritual fire. The utilization of the treasure technique has been the direction he has been striving for in the past 5 or 6 years, and this thing is actually a magical version of the star-absorbing technique. Although the runes in this world are only spread on a small scale, the Yengu Marquis mansion in southern Chu is also a top-notch family. For children of such a top-notch world, there are not only 1 or 2 who want to learn runes, but only 1 or 2 who can truly get started. Because of the memory of the Buddha, he only learns runes to determine the compatibility between the runes in the Buddha's records and the runes in this world. The result is gratifying. The runes in the Buddha's records are universal and can naturally be used in this world. However, whether it is the Buddha's runes or the runes in this world, he can only draw them. This alone is already quite challenging. All he has been missing is just an opportunity. Dancing all over the sky, with runes scattered all over the ground, it was clearly not his opportunity. The bone symbol in front of him is his opportunity. A lazy playboy with weak willpower is not destined to achieve much in martial arts, but with the golden finger of the treasure refining technique, he can use his precious energy to infinitely strengthen his body and enhance his strength. What is the most important aspect of martial arts cultivation? Nature is the body. With a strong body, it can naturally carry stronger strength and stronger martial arts. In my current situation, I can actually practice Qianjun arm, he thought to himself. In this world, martial arts are revered, and martial arts are the cornerstone. Therefore, various families and factions have a tight grip on the cultivation of martial arts. Only some basic fragments have been passed down in the outside world. If you want to learn truly advanced martial arts, you can only join one faction or have bad luck, just like the legendary protagonist who has been passed down by ancestors. For ordinary people, having a powerful martial arts tradition that has been passed down never gives them the opportunity to interact, but he is the son of Marquis Yang Wu and comes from a wealthy family. Although he is only an illegitimate son, in addition to the core martial arts techniques truly passed down by the Yengu Marquis mansion, the martial arts inheritance he can obtain far exceeds the imagination of ordinary people. It can even be said that besides the core martial arts techniques truly passed down by the Yengu Marquis mansion, he can still obtain a considerable amount of martial arts inheritance. For example, the secret technique of Qianjun arm can instantly unleash the power of Qianjun in both arms after cultivation, with infinite power. Previously, he had a poor foundation and a thin foundation, and even with corresponding cultivation methods, his body could not bear it. But now, the situation is completely different. Although bone talismans are not considered true treasures, as long as I have the refining technique and produce something, it can provide me with a continuous stream of precious qi. With this continuous stream of precious qi, my body can be infinitely strengthened in theory. The forging state has no meaning for me. If operated well, the third-level state is easily obtainable, but there seems to be some mention of the qi and blood state. Breaking through the realm requires a strong physique, invincibility from all kinds of illnesses, and a well-rounded internal strength. This is practicing martial arts, not forging iron. Just having strength is not enough, and it requires certain skills to use it. Specifically, when using energy, the whole body's strength should be completely concentrated, round and cannot be dispersed, and the force emitted should be able to explode the air. With a single punch, the air explodes and the power is astonishing. As the saying goes, 1,000 gold cannot buy a sound. When practicing martial arts, one punch explodes and the realm is broken, which is a symbol of becoming a first-class martial artist. Xiaoqi is now a first-class warrior. The precious energy refined from a bone talisman has already elevated his body to the level of a first-level warrior. Although the remaining 6 bone talismans also have precious energy, they have not been able to bring him to the level of a second-level warrior. Of course, the strength of the body and one's own strength must have been achieved, but there is a significant difference in martial arts skills. The body can be infinitely strengthened with the help of treasure energy, but martial arts are truly cultivated by oneself. He used treasure energy to avoid the most difficult and initial stage, but the rest of the way still needs to be left to himself. The cultivation of Spirit Ape Foundation Fist cannot be relaxed yet, right? Next, I will mainly focus on cultivating the explosive power of Spirit Ape Foundation Fist and Qianjun Arm, in order to truly master my body in strength. It's drizzling and the sky is clear. The air is filled with faint water vapor, and under the sunlight, colorful hues occasionally flash. Young Master 7 has broken through. In recent days, the servants of Yengwu Marquis' mansion have been discussing. They suddenly noticed that their 7th prince seemed to have become more diligent. Every morning, they could see his figure appear in the courtyard and start practicing martial arts, which was almost unimaginable in the past. This young master didn't sleep until almost noon one day, but now he has become so diligent, as if he has changed someone else, and they can't help but think less. After all, this is the Yengwu Marquis' mansion, and the competition among the descendants of the clan is still very fierce. In the past, this young master was not eye-catching because he had no competitiveness. Now how has he become diligent? Did the prodigal son suddenly turn around and have any thoughts on the family business of Yengwu Marquis' mansion? No, how could this be possible? Even if he had an idea, the Yang Wuho mansion would never be in his hands. Marquis Yengwu is a true man, full of energy and exceptional physical strength. He has 9 sons and 3 daughters alone, so it's impossible for him to turn his turn. But when they discovered that Yu Wudao had broken through the realm and had become a first-class martial artist, they all let go. So it's a breakthrough. The first level of cultivating martial arts has been broken, and it is inevitable that young people have enthusiasm. They feel that their future is open, and this feeling is not with anyone. Almost all beginners have experienced it before, and it is not a big deal. After everyone was surprised for a while, they didn't say much, just take a look. Young master, have you been taking the wrong medicine lately? Why are you working so hard? Others didn't say anything, but Linger became curious. No one knows this young master better than him, and she still couldn't adapt to this suddenly diligent young master. Before, it was before, now it is now. Faced with Linger's questioning, Xiaoqi just smiled and completed a set of foundation-building punches. He took the towel handed over by Linger and asked, "How are you?" "Young master, I'm practicing well, right?" Linger's big eyes were filled with curiosity. "Young master, you're really good at practicing. Why didn't I see before that you still have such a talent in martial arts? If you can see everything, why is the young master still the young master?" Xiaoqi couldn't help but say, "How did you do what I asked you to do?" "I have already asked, and the price of demon beasts is very high. Young master, you cannot afford it at all. Even the corpses and bones of spirit beasts are extremely rare medicines on the market, and they rarely leak out. Moreover, I have also learned that spirit beast bones are usually ground into powder. If they are purchased by major pharmacies, it is impossible to spread them. I know all of these, what I'm asking is there's no catch. I didn't know that, I'm just a little maid." Ling Er said discontentedly. "Okay, you're just a little maid. He looked at the little maid who was even taller than him by a head and smiled. Today is the 8th day of the Lunar New Year, so prepare everything you need. Yes, young master. Linger hurriedly said. In a few days, it will be the anniversary of Yuhi's mother's death and also Yuhi's birthday. Yuhi's mother was only a concubine of Marquis Yengu and was not included in the family genealogy. Therefore, she is not eligible to be buried in the tomb of Marquis Yangwu's family. She just chose a good feng shui place outside the city for burial. Every year at this time, Yuhi would leave the city, which is the most basic etiquette for a son of a man, and of course, that's all. Don't worry, the young master is already ready. He has been with us for 10 years, and this matter has already been done easily. There is no need for much reminder. That's it. Yuhi said with a lackluster expression, I'll be 16 years old in a month and I'll be going out to work. I don't know how the old man arranged it. He let out a light sigh, thinking with some anticipation. Note 1. Except for the settings, this book does not involve anything else and is only used as a distant background and explanatory note. 2. The inspiration for the setting of the treasure refining technique comes from the setting of the Duobao Taoist in the blood-red Great Wusong. This is hereby explained. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Young Master, hurry up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Young Master, hurry up. 3 days passed, turning around. A thin horse, pulling a semi-old carriage, leads east to the side door of Yengu Marquis' mansion. Yuhi only brought one groom and Ling-er. Compared to ordinary people, Ling-er's figure is exceptionally tall and special. Fortunately, people near the Yengu Marquis' mansion know that there is such a special little girl in the mansion, so it did not attract much attention. However, after the carriage left the city, it still caused some commotion. After all, not everyone is familiar with the Yengu Marquis' mansion, and not everyone has seen such a tall girl. At this moment it was not long before dawn, and the sky was still a bit dim. There were not many pedestrians on the road, and the carriageway was also unobstructed. In just 15 minutes, they left the east gate and took the official road outside Yingdu City. It's late autumn, everything is bleak, the blinds are withered and yellow, and silver frost is everywhere. The carriage rolled along the official road, leaving 2 shallow ruts. Beyond the capital of Ying is Donghengshan. The mountain is tall and dark, stretching endlessly. After walking about 10 miles on the official road, I turned into a narrow mountain road that could only accommodate a carriage, and the speed slowed down accordingly. Yuhi sat in the car, closed his eyes and pondered deeply. The effect of the treasure refining technique was far beyond his imagination. Although his strength had increased significantly and he had entered the martial arts realm, it was only after entering that he realized that mastering the sudden growth of his own strength was not an easy task. However, there was still a feeling of indigestion for a while, and there was still a lack of control over his own strength and even his body, which needed further polishing. Therefore, all plans for the future must also be completely overturned. Although I am an illegitimate son, I am still a descendant of Marquis Yangwu. Whether it is for the sake of my own face or the reputation of the Yu family, the old man will always arrange a good way out for me. Now that my martial arts have broken through, it is most likely that I will be arranged in the military and horse department of the 5 cities. This is his basic plan. I had thought about finding a way to enter the family's industry so that I can have access to some spiritual objects, but now, if I want to hone myself and polish my strength, I have to choose again. All spiritual creatures in this world are monopolized by various forces, but the Yang Wuho mansion is one of the forces that monopolize these spiritual creatures. Previously, he was just an ordinary commoner and did not show any special characteristics. However, there were not many opportunities to come into contact with these spiritual creatures in the mansion. However, if he were to be released and come into contact with the business of the clan, he would flatter the old man and become a warehouse manager. Therefore, there would be more opportunities to come into contact with these spiritual creatures, and it would be convenient for him to get up and down. But now he realizes that strengthening his body and increasing strength are of great help to him, but digesting these forces is not an easy task. The best way is to have the opportunity to cultivate higher martial arts. Building a foundation is a strong foundation, but there are shortcomings in controlling strength. His physical strength has reached the third level of martial arts, but his martial arts level is still first level. In addition to physical fitness, breaking through the realm requires a well-rounded body. When he strengthens his body with his precious energy, he can feel the details of his body's changes and comprehend this before breaking through the realm in one fell swoop. But in order to reach the second level, which is the level of small body refining, what is needed is the control of power. In other words, micro-manipulation must be in place, which he cannot achieve now. He still needs more opportunities, exposure to more martial arts, and even more opportunities for fighting and fighting. Just as he was pondering, he suddenly felt a shock in his heart. He gave a sudden jolt and sat up straight. Whoosh! There were several cold and piercing sounds of breaking the wind in my ears. Not good. Time flies, but in an instant, he spun like a spirit ape and emerged from the window of the carriage. Almost as he walked out of the carriage, 7 or 8 long arrows made it easy to shoot into the carriage and pierce through its wooden walls. After a few muffled sounds, he deeply nailed himself to the other side of the carriage. As far as my gaze could see, sharp arrow tips protruded from the wooden wall panels of the carriage. There are assassins. At this moment, the groom finally realized and let out a scream. The next moment, a long arrow pierced through his chest, flipping him off the carriage and fiercely nailing him to the ground. Hula! But at this moment, Linger's body moved and a gust of wind swept up. She rushed to the carriage and grabbed the old horse that had already been hit by 5 or 6 arrows. Ignoring its final struggle, she wheeled him up and let out a low roar like a wild beast. The horse flew out horizontally, making a sound in the air, and flew fiercely towards where the long arrow came from. Bang! In the next moment, with a muffled sound, the old horse smashed into a lush thicket. Under the tremendous and violent force, it was shattered to pieces in an instant, and there were bursts of screams from within the thicket. More than 10 black figures rushed out of it, throwing down their bows and arrows, pulling out their long sword from their waist, and shouting and killing them. Young master, hurry up! Ling Er was startled, but she didn't run away. Instead, she shouted and picked up the carriage with one hand, charging towards the group of people in black. Yes, pick up the carriage, or in other words, swing it and charge over. You silly, you have the strength to carry the young master on your back and run. He cursed inwardly, although feeling a bit scared, there was also a hint of excitement in his heart. Although the war was fierce and dangerous, if it had been in the past, he would have turned around and left, but now it is different from the past. Seeing Ling Er, who had already rushed into the group of assassins and killed them in a ball, he suddenly laughed. With a body like a spirit ape, he stepped forward. Young master, you want to die? Seeing Yuhi's movements, Ling Er was startled. The carriage in her hand had already been shattered by him, with only 2 huge door panels like walls, dancing like a tiger. She didn't expect Yuhi to rush over. In his impression, this young master and his family has always been seeking good fortune and avoiding misfortune. When encountering such situations, it must be better to run first. Why did he change his temper today? Normally, he wouldn't be afraid of changing his temper, but now he has changed his temper but he's dying. In a fit of anxiety, the 2 huge door panels in her hand danced twice, forcing the group of assassins to retreat and retreating to Yuhi's side. Young master, do you want to commit suicide? She shouted loudly, if there's anything you can't take it seriously, go back and talk about it. Your young master hasn't lived enough yet. Yuhi exclaimed discontentedly, I've been practicing recently and have gained some insights. I'll take this opportunity to try my hand. Just as he was about to explain, a man in black rushed up to him, raised his sword, and slashed the cold light in front of him, startling him. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, he heard a loud bang, and the man in black was thrown out by the huge door panel in Linger's hand. "Young master, it's not time to play now. Hurry up." Ling Er called out helplessly. Or perhaps due to some confusion, two black-clothed men had already rushed towards him. In the blink of their swords, two long knives struck her right arm, and in an instant, blood flew. Linger groaned and retreated, but quickly stood firm. The two door panels flew up, blocking the incoming long sword again. At the same time, Yuhi paused in his footsteps and rushed up to the two assassins. His arms rolled up and he fiercely smashed into their chests. The speed was not fast, nor was it too abrupt, nor was there much strategy. The two assassins simultaneously held their hands against their chests, trying to block this seemingly unconventional blow. With two loud bangs, there was a sound of bones shattering. Two assassins were hit hard and flew backwards, spewing blood from their mouths in mid-air. Qianjun arm. This is exactly the Qianjun arm secret passed down by the Yu family, which is not an ordinary martial art, but a secret method for using power. The whole body's strength is concentrated in the arms, and when waved, it bursts out with a force of up to Qianjun, hence the name Qianjun arm. Yuhi has been nourished by precious energy, and although he is only a first-grade martial artist, in terms of pure power, he will not be much worse than a third-grade martial artist. It is just that his martial arts skills are far inferior. Although I have only been practicing for a short time, this is not a profound secret technique. Coupled with the innate conditions in terms of strength, when waving my arms, I cannot reach 1,000 pounds, but it can still be quite powerful. Between the two assassins in a hurry, where can we defend ourselves? In an instant, he was knocked out. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Natural Divine Power in Xiaoqi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Natural divine power in Xiaoqi. One strike resulted in two assassins, and Yuhi gradually recovered from his chaotic emotions. In the middle of the scene, Linger waved the two large wooden boards in her hand again, and two assassins rushed over from the side. Linger blocked one with a door panel, while the other was much more clever, playing a trick of deceiving others. Halfway through, her body suddenly turned around, and taking advantage of Yuhi's slightly stunned time, she took an arrow step and rushed to Yuhi's face. In a hurry, Yuhi retreated consecutively. The assassin's swordsmanship was fierce, and his sword was not separated from the key points. This assassin's strength was clearly superior to other assassins, and he was also the only assassin present who used a sword. Although Yuhi has already entered the realm, it is still his first time facing an enemy, and he is a mortal enemy. No matter how much confidence he had in himself before, facing such an opponent with a gong and a drum in front of him still makes him feel a bit flustered. Within a few rounds, he already had several wounds on his body. Damn it! Feeling the strange pain of the sharp blade cutting his body, Yuhi retreated in succession. Not far away, Linger overturned the last enemy with a huge wooden board in her hand. Seeing Yuhi's condition, she was shocked and let out a strange roar, stomping hard on the ground. Boom! With a muffled sound, her body flew out like a shell and rushed towards the assassin. The assassin was also very depressed at this moment. Although Yuhi's strength was not very strong, his experience in facing enemies was limited, his footwork was tricky and flexible, strange and tight, far exceeding what he had learned all over. If it were a 1-on-1 match, with the absolute difference in strength between the two sides, he would have confidence to win in a few rounds. But now, he doesn't have that time anymore. He witnessed Linger's strength with his own eyes just now. If he rushed to the front of his eyes and joined forces with her, he would definitely not have another chance. 1,000 thoughts, just a moment. In the next moment, his expression suddenly twisted, and the speed of the long sword in his hand suddenly doubled. A brilliant and unparalleled blade light flashed away. At this moment, the sword light transformed into a meteor flying from outside, dazzling and suddenly escaping, elusive and irresistible. Meteor outside the sky. Puff. With a flying sound, the long sword had already pierced Yuhi's chest. Then, a surprised expression appeared on the assassin's face under the black veil. His movements paused for a moment, and it was like this that he took his old life. Yuhi had no expression on his face, and with 5 fingers of his left hand, he hooked around the other person's neck within a millimeter. Squeeze your 5 fingers vigorously and pull along with the flow. With a thud, half of the assassin's neck was pulled down by him, and blood spurted out in an instant. His body collapsed limply, and at that moment, Linger rushed towards them. Big power magic monkey fist, demon ape's paw hu. Looking at the assassin lying in front of him, Yuhi couldn't hold on anymore. He had lived for nearly 40 years in 2 lifetimes, but he had never seen such a posture before. My whole body was covered in blood, sticky, especially on my hands. A wave of nausea surged into my throat, and I leaned against a small tree beside me and slowly sat down, panting and regaining my strength. A corpse lay on the ground, covered in frost. The bleak autumn wind blew by, bringing waves of coldness and a strong smell of blood. Yuhi finally couldn't help but vomit. He vomited for a while until he could no longer vomit anything. Then he looked up, pulled open his collar, and took out a red rope, which was a red rope. There were also some fragments scattered on his chest. Bone talisman. This was the only bone talisman he had preserved while refining it. This bone talisman originated from a wild boar that had already become a monster and could greatly strengthen his skin and muscles in a short period of time. The assassin's sword just now was too fast, like a shooting star flashing, and Yuhi couldn't avoid it. Therefore, this bone talisman was activated and saved his life. Originally, it was supposed to be a chest-piercing sword, but with the blessing of bone talismans, the sword only entered a few inches and was caught by his muscles. In addition, at the most critical moment, Yuhi slightly deviated from his body, so he was not pierced through his chest. The assassin also felt that the touch of the long sword was not right, and his thoughts paused. Yuhi seized the opportunity and took his life with a claw. However, even so, Yuhi suffered a considerable injury. The wound on his chest was bleeding profusely, and when the girl Ling Er killed her, she was like a fierce beast. However, she had no experience in this area and still stood foolishly by his side, guarding him and not coming to see how his young master's injury was. Linger, help me up. Okay. Oh, be gentle. Ah, young master, you're injured. Did you get chopped off? How fresh. Linger's shouting almost killed Yuhi's head, so I was bleeding halfway before you noticed it. But the next moment, he regretted it again. With a loud bang, Yuhi, who had just been pulled up halfway, threw himself under the assassin's body, his entire head buried in a pile of blood. Linger saw the blood on his body and was so scared that she let go of her hand. Barbell, I'm going to kill you. It's night. Lord Yangwu's mansion by Chao Hall. Yuhi collapsed on a large chair, with a face full of pain and a pale complexion. His body was wrapped in white bandages, with exhalation but no intake, and he looked almost dead. Are you saying that not only have you broken through martial arts and advanced to the first level, but you also have a natural divine power, amazing talent, courage and strategy, fearless of life and death, and fought bloody battles on the spot, killing all the assassins alone? Yes. What's wrong with your maid? Maid? What maid? Yuhi raised his head, his gaze wandering, and for a moment, he made a sudden realization. Oh, you say Linger, she brought me back. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be able to get home now. I heard that she is naturally gifted and has divine powers, isn't she? She has some silly strength, she didn't put in too much force this time. Yuhi tugged at his mouth, thinking of the feeling of falling head down on the body of the assassin, his face covered in brain tissue, and said fiercely, if it weren't for the face she brought me back, I would have sold her. You buy-in square and majestic purple-born national character face turned into an eggplant face. After a while, he finally gasped for breath. As one of the 4 pillars of Southern Chu and one of the rare 9th-grade masters in Southern Chu, he had no choice but to use his son, who had a strange temper and was not adjusted to the extreme. This was simply too shameless. I am just a commoner of the Marquis' mansion. I have no status, and I have no interests. I have never had any enemies or grudges with anyone. Why did someone come to kill me? Perhaps my father and Marquis caused trouble and retaliated against me. You and the imitated Buddha did not see the strange expression on Yu Baiyan's face, and said with a strange tone. If I had caused the grudge, would you still be able to come back alive? I'm afraid you don't even have any bones now. Yu Baiyan sneered. Who did that? We're still investigating. Come on, the strongest assassin is just a martial arts breakthrough. Apart from being a bit of a flower fist and embroidered legs, they have no discipline or cooperation, and they appear to be a group of lawless people. How difficult is it to investigate such people? If I sit in your position, I can find them in half a day. It's been a day now, still investigating. Put up or shut up. When I break through the realm and enter the 9th level in the future, I may not be interested in your position. You can just blow it. Meteor outside the sky, from Gulong's round moon and curved blade. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Marquis' Mansion and Palace City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Marquis' Mansion and Palace City. Young Master, what did Marquis say? Returning from the Baichao courtyard to his own small courtyard, He tore off the white bandage on his body, changed into a new outfit, took the teacup handed over by Ling Er, took a strong sip, and then with a plop, he vomited everything out. Why is it cold? Oh, I forgot. Alas, one day, young master, I will be killed by you. He was speechless for a moment. Ling Er chuckled twice, took the cup from He's hand, and put it aside. Young master, what exactly did Marquis say? What else can we say, Cha Bai? He smiled and said, anyway, it's a confused account. Just find a few people to take responsibility for it. That's it. Find some scapegoats, young master. They really want your life. The young master's life is not as valuable as you think, but there is indeed a problem with this matter. He was also puzzled, just like what he said to Yu Baiyan. He had never been a mortal enemy before, and in terms of identity, he was just an ordinary illegitimate son. If someone had formed an enemy with the Yengwu Marquis' mansion, it was unlikely that they would target him. The most bizarre ones were the assassins, which were too childish compared to the Yengwu Marquis' mansion. Do you think he really has golden fingers, unleashes divine power, and goes beyond his level to kill enemies? Bon friend, you are too naive. Ultimately, it's those assassins who are too weak. A warrior who has just broken through the realm and entered the realm, along with a naturally divine maid, will kill them all. Assassins at this level cannot be the ones that the enemies of the Yengwu Marquis' mansion are willing to take advantage of. The whole thing looked like a farce, but if he was right, it was indeed a farce. What he didn't know was that the impact of this farce was significant. Yingdu is already fried. What are you talking about? The young master of Yengwu Marquis' mansion was stabbed. This is not a small matter. Although he is just a commoner, he is still the son of Marquis Yengwu. Marquis Yengwu is also one of the 9 strong men in southern Chu, with a high position and power. He targets his son, and he is still in the outskirts of Yingdu. This obviously touches the bottom line in the hearts of the powerful people in Yingdu. For a while, before the Yu mansion started to stir up trouble, Yingdu had already started to stir up. The metropolitan government and the military and horse department of the 5 cities came out to investigate and clean up a large number of city foxes and rodents in the Ying capital city, causing chaos and chaos. Yingdu, Dongqing in the gloomy dusk, the towering palace crawled like a giant beast in the center of the capital city. The empty main hall, with animal patterns blooming and 3-legged incense cauldrons, is filled with a lingering green smoke, and a fragrant scent permeates the surroundings. The little emperor leaned on the couch, his delicate and unparalleled face adorned with a strange smile. Reaching out his hand, he picked up a grape from the nearby fruit tray and put it in his mouth, closing his eyes to enjoy the sweet aroma. "You're here." The crisp footsteps slowly walked into the hall, and the young emperor waved his hand. On both sides, eunuchs bowed and slowly exited the hall. The tall hall door slowly closed, and the space inside the hall became even more peaceful. "Yuhi has been assassinated." The girl entering the palace had an expressionless expression, a cold expression, and a calm tone, revealing a hint of displeasure. "Assassination, who did it?" The little emperor raised his eyebrows, spat out the grape seeds in his mouth, sprinkled them all over the ground, and sat up from the couch. "Whose nerve was this stirring up? The black guards have checked and found that the assassin is from the Changel gang. The deputy leader of the Changel gang, Yang Chong, leads a team of 8 people. Yang Chong is a skilled warrior." "Changel gang." The little emperor frowned slightly. "I haven't heard of it." "A small gang within the capital of Ing, newly established, is bold in its actions and reckless in its style. It is known for its daring to fight and kill, occupying 3 streets of the southern city. Due to its many skilled hands, it also engages in assassination activities on a regular basis. It's a bit interesting." The little emperor laughed. It seems that the people who hire them don't know the truth behind it. The other party was also very cautious, taking a few turns, but their methods were immature and tight. The girl also sneered. It was Aunt Lu from Yengwu Marquis' mansion who did it. The internal strife within the mansion. It should be for the sake of leaving the mansion. Yuhi is about to leave the mansion, and Yu Bai Yan has arranged a good marriage for him, the second daughter of Gao Yangbu's family. I heard that Aunt Lu is quite favored in Yengwu Marquis' mansion, almost managing half of the family. Not bad. Aunt Lu has a son named Yu Qian, who is only 1 month younger than Yu He and is about to leave the mansion. She probably also wants to find a support for her son. Gaoyang uncle's mansion is a good choice. Perhaps she thinks that Yu He is dead, and if she blows a pillow wind, this marriage is likely to fall on Yu Qian. This kind of thing is very common in big families. Should we deal with it? At this point, the girl's eyes slightly twisted. No need, since this is a family matter of the Yengwu Marquis' mansion, let's not interfere. The little emperor waved his hand, feeling a bit discouraged and disappointed. I was originally planning to watch a good show. Good show. The girl sneered. How could such a thing make you watch good show? Yu Bai Yan has lost his adult this time. Yeah, it's hard to guard against thieves day and night. I really want to see the expression of Marquis Yengwu during tomorrow's court. The little emperor chuckled. By the way, sister, you're already 17 today, right? Extraterrestrial meteor in the mansion of Marquis Yengwu. He looked at the fragments in front of him with a subtle gaze. He naturally couldn't believe that an assassination attempt would catch the attention of the Southern Chu Emperor. His attention was now completely focused on the fragments in front of him. This was a sword technique, an unparalleled and fierce sword technique. Speaking of which, if it weren't for Linger not helping him properly and letting him fall on the body of the assassin, he wouldn't have noticed that this secret sword technique was still hidden on the assassin's body. Panwu continent, where martial arts dominate the world, but the level of martial artists is clear, and the cultivation system is extremely perfect, which seems to have reached an alarming level. It's completely different from the martial arts novels he read in his previous life, where he can easily practice his internal skills. If he has nothing to do, he can jump off a cliff and gain 100 years of martial arts skills. He is invincible in the world. The martial arts credits in this world are divided into 2 major methods. The fundamental law and the protective law. The so-called fundamental method is to refine oneself through the method of forging the body. The forging state is to build the foundation and practice strength, the qi and blood state is to move the method and practice strength, and the controlling state is to refine qi and nourish qi. The fundamental law is the foundation. What Yuhi cultivates is the Spirit Ape Foundation Fist, which is a top-notch foundational technique for forging the body. It is used to train strength, but if it is used for warfare and killing, it is not enough. To fight and conquer, various martial arts and sword techniques are required to protect the Tao. Like Yuhi's Mighty Monkey Demon Fist, it is a powerful martial art inherited by the Yang Wuhou Mansion, with swift and decisive attacks. Among the methods of protecting the Tao, there is also an extremely special technique, which is the ultimate skill. The so-called ultimate skill, in other words, is a great move that requires explosive energy. The characteristic of ultimate moves is their immense power, but their consumption is astonishing and their endurance is insufficient. Some ultimate moves are even more difficult for ordinary people to comprehend. The last three moves of Mighty Ape Magic Fist are all within the scope of ultimate moves, and Yuhi's Demon Ape Claw, which killed the assassin leader, is one of them. Yuhi only managed to practice this move reluctantly, and the remaining two moves were still at a loss. The meteor outside the sky and the fragments is a unique swordsmanship move. Obviously, the leader of the assassin was also barely trained and did not fully understand, which was why he carried the fragments with him and had time to repeatedly study. In the end, it was cheaper for Yuhi. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Difficulty and Compensation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Difficulty and Compensation, what a bargain. I haven't practiced swordsmanship yet. I can't understand this sword technique. After reading through the fragments thoroughly, Yuhi couldn't help but feel disappointed. Speaking of which, his martial arts understanding was indeed not high. If it weren't for the treasure refining technique, he wouldn't even be able to enter the martial arts gate. Now that he has just entered the gate, what he has learned is only martial arts. Let him learn the unique sword techniques, it's pure nonsense. That assassin leader was the same. He only learned the fur technique and didn't have all the techniques for using his energy. When he used it, he only had a faster speed and a more sharp angle, which had unexpected effects. However, his power was not much different from that of a regular stab sword, which was blocked by Yuhi's bone talisman. After reading for a while, Yuhi collected the remaining scroll again. It's not that he's not interested, but rather that his skills are not right. He has the foundation of the treasure refining technique, and the characteristics of the treasure refining technique almost determine that his future martial arts path will be to open and close, with strong pressure. Therefore, swordsmanship and swordsmanship are actually not suitable for him. What truly suits him is heavy weapons, the heavier the better, which is the right path for him. Moreover, with his mind on litigation now, how could he have that American time to calm down and study swordsmanship? Let's figure out who's going to kill him first. It's not difficult to find out. As Yu Baiyan said, if it were the enemy of the Marquis' mansion, he probably wouldn't even have any bones left. How could he still be alive and kicking? It's not an enemy of the Marquis' mansion, it's not a public enmity, then it's a private enmity. But in terms of personal matters, it seems that I have never offended anyone before. I didn't offend anyone to such a tragic extent. Do you want the assassin to kill you? Is it not the old man's enemy, but one's own enemy? But I have been in the Yengwu mansion for so many years and I am also a Buddhist. I have a good relationship with my brothers and sisters, but it is not too bad. My sister has deliberately offended anyone. Besides, the old man in his own family also pays attention to the education of these children. He doesn't tell lies like brotherhood and respect, but he doesn't have an atmosphere of fraternity and tension. It is impossible for such a bloody drama of property disputes to be staged in such a big family. No, it seems to be a competition for production. There is no big dispute over property, and these non-legitimate children cannot compete for the position of Marquis Yengwu. However, there is a small dispute over property, such as speaking about the affairs of the mansion in southern Chu. It is impossible for a non-legitimate descendant of a large family like him to stay in the mansion for a lifetime. At a certain age, they will all leave the mansion. The so-called leaving the mansion, as the name suggests, means leaving Yengu Marquis' mansion and establishing one's own family. Of course, such a departure from the mansion cannot be a pure departure. As long as it is not a major mistake, the mansion will basically arrange your affairs before leaving the mansion. One is to arrange your future after leaving the mansion, and the other is to arrange your livelihood after leaving the mansion. Simply put, it means profession and industry. This is either because one's profession is being targeted, or because the industry to be allocated is being targeted. Who was watching? Among the 9 brothers, those who are over 16 years old are not mentioned, while those who are under 16 years old are 3 in total. He ranks 7th, and Yu Qian, who is 8th, is only 3 months behind him. So, of course, it is the mother of the disciple Yu Qianyu who will be leaving the mansion with him. Aunt Lu. Marquis Yang Wu is the most favored aunt in the Bai Yan harem, Aunt Lu, who will stay overnight in her courtyard for 20 out of 30 days. I'm blocking someone else's way. This is the disadvantage of being a commoner with no mother or support in the mansion. Only moms are good in the world, no moms that's not right either. With Aunt Lu's status and degree of favor in the mansion, when the wind blows, the benefits that teacher Yu can get when she leaves the mansion will definitely be much greater than mine. She also doesn't like those small industries, and the tasks arranged may not necessarily catch her eye. So her goal is marriage engagement. Only engagement can arouse her interest, right? Killing oneself and having one's own son ascend to the throne. He is of similar age and status, and I don't think Marquis Gaoyang would have any objections. The most important thing is that the younger brother will inherit the throne. Such a thing is actually an ancient tradition in southern Chu. And with the background of Aunt Lu's family, it is not impossible to achieve this. Her family runs an escort agency, and she knows many people from all walks of life. This kind of thing can be judged by oneself without evidence, the old man cannot be unable to judge. So, this is playing dumb with me. If I die, there may be some big commotion, but I kill myself, so the official positions between the Marquis' mansion and the Xuantian's mansion are just perfunctory. If the old man doesn't express his opinion, I won't be able to defeat Aunt Lu. For now, let's take a look. I have exposed quite a few problems in this assassination attempt, and I am still a bit panicked in times of emergency. I can only use 30% or 40% of my abilities. If it weren't for the fact that the Qianjun arm and powerful demon ape fist are far stronger than those assassins' flower fists and embroidered legs, perhaps there would be some setbacks. These are all areas that need to be overcome. The first encounter with the enemy was somewhat panicked, and both psychologically and physically, it deviated from what he had imagined before. The situation of killing all sides did not exist. Ideals are full, reality is bony. Yengu Marquis' mansion, Jinyun Hall. The lights were brightly lit, and Marquis Wu of southern Chuyang sat upright in the lobby at Bai Yan, his tall body resembling a giant mountain, supporting the entire world. At this moment, he was looking at his son, who had always been extremely mediocre, with a curious gaze. You just said, do you want a weapon? Yes, I need a weapon. When facing the enemy empty-handed, the disadvantage is too great. I heard that you have already mastered the first move of Mighty Monkey Fist, and performed well when facing assassins. If there were a weapon, it would perform even better. The cow had already blown it out before, but now it's not easy to retrieve it. There's some truth. Yu Baiyan lightly moved his fingertips and tapped the table, making a thumping sound as if thinking about something. You have been mentally mature and steady since childhood, but you just can't bear hardships. Therefore, you have not made significant progress on the path of martial arts. How could you suddenly break through the barrier? Lucky has some insights, some gains. He chuckled. To be honest. A few days ago, Zhuangzi sent a wild boar to me. They were considered ordinary creatures, but in fact, they were a spiritual beast. After eating them, the effect was good and they were beginners in martial arts. However, most of this is also because I have accumulated knowledge and skills. Thick accumulation and thin hair. Yu Baiyan raised his eyebrows and wanted to measure how thick his son's skin was. However, he restrained himself and nodded. This is an unexpected surprise. As soon as the conversation changed, the assassination incident has been investigated and it is a remnant of Dongmen village. 5 years ago, I wiped out Dongmen village and some of the fish that missed the net ran out. They were determined to seek revenge from me, but there were not many opportunities, so they turned their attention to you. No wonder, I also feel curious. A person like me with a pure and good character, who has never formed enemies with anyone, how could someone suddenly come to assassinate me? He seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and laughed. Since I have found the culprit, I should not have any trouble in the future. We've killed them all. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Manxiang Jing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Manxiang Jing, I've killed it all. He's chubby with a simple smile on his face, I can rest assured. In less than a month, you will be leaving the mansion. You should be clear about the rules of leaving the mansion. I have gained some understanding, but when it comes to rules, there is still a lot of room to truly operate them when written on paper. He said. You're right. There's room for operation, and you've also arranged a marriage with a girl from the Qin family. Anyway, she's also a young lady from the Marquis' mansion, so you can't be too shabby. I've prepared the house for you, right inside the city, not far from the Marquis' mansion. There's also a farm outside the city, 100 acres of good farmland, and 2 hills to maintain your daily expenses. In addition, you can also serve as a servant in the mansion. The servants don't need to, I just need to carry a barbell. There are too many people to support me, he interrupted him. Barbell. Yu Baiyan was stunned for a moment before quickly reacting. Are you referring to the little girl named Linger you picked up and raised next to her? It's her. You're lucky. Just picking up a little girl on the road is a natural divine power. This time, it seems like she's doing a great job. It's not really a big deal, it's just a bit too strong to carry me back, he said, firmly taking all the credit onto himself. After leaving the mansion, it's like dividing the family. I don't have much income, and I have to get married. How can I afford to support so many people? Besides, I don't care about these things. If you think so, then forget it. Yu Baiyan did not insist, as he said, raising a child also requires spending money. I will find a way to deal with the issue of weapons. I have also arranged for you the task of going out. As for the position of a team leader in the South City Army in Horse Division, whether you can do it steadily depends on your abilities. Southern City Army in Horse Division, team leader. He was a bit surprised, but still nodded and said, I will sit firmly in this position. This is the best way. In addition, you can also enter the book pavilion of the Marquis' mansion and choose an advanced martial arts. If you have the opportunity to step over the first ladder in the future, there will be corresponding resource support in the mansion. This is also the meaning that should be conveyed in the question. High-level warriors are always scarce in resources. Although the Panwu continent is a prosperous era of martial arts, when placed in a vast world, one can already be called a master by breaking through the first ladder of heaven and entering the Qi and Blood realm. In some remote places, a master in the Qi and Blood realm can even support a small family. For the Marquis Yang Wu mansion, an expert in the Qi and Blood realm can barely be considered a qualified thug. Coupled with his identity, he can naturally receive the support of the Marquis mansion's resources. Of course, among the Marquis mansions now, there is no second person who believes that he can break through the first ladder of heaven, except for his intimate little girl. Even Marquis Yang Wu's expectations for him in Baiyan are not above martial arts. Speaking of which, I don't really aspire to the Shuj of Yengwu Marquis' mansion in Yuha. Although there are many martial arts secrets hidden inside, he is now just a martial artist in the refining realm. The Spirit Ape Foundation Fist and the Ape Demon Power Fist were already sufficient for him. However, after the last time he entered the martial arts world, he keenly realized that his talent in the martial arts path was not too high, and his understanding of martial arts was not very strong. Although he had broken through the realm, he still had a considerable distance to go in order to accurately control his strength and achieve a small level of physical cultivation. This life and death battle helped him take a step forward. He vaguely grasped the opportunity for breakthrough, but it still requires some time of hard work. This is the Manxiang Jing, which was bestowed upon you by your father and Marquis. He said that with your physical condition, this martial arts is very suitable for you. The Elephant Classic. The barbell took the book and felt a little excited. The barbell has a special physique and is born with divine power, which is something that he had known for a long time. However, due to her identity, she has never had a suitable martial arts. She cultivates the martial arts, White Ape Jie, provided by the Yang Wuho mansion for the servants to practice, but it is obvious that this martial arts is not suitable for her. Until now, she has not yet broken through the martial arts realm and entered the first level. Although those first or even second-level martial artists in the mansion would hide from her when they saw her, being unsuitable means not suitable. It is impossible for her to advance to the first level of martial arts with the help of the White Ape technique, as the path was already wrong. This time, Yuhi carefully selected this Manxiang Jing in the book pavilion, feeling that this martial arts should be very suitable for barbells. The Manxiang Classic is a martial arts collection of the Yengu Marquis mansion. Its fundamental techniques, the Manxiang Foundation Fist and the Manxiang Regret Heavenly Hammer, have the same effect and power as the Monkey Demon Classic he practiced, and even surpass them. However, this cultivation method requires extremely high physical fitness for practitioners, and the cultivation conditions are extremely strict. Ordinary people cannot meet its cultivation requirements. Looking at the entire Yengu Marquis mansion, only 120 years ago, his uncle Yu Tianbao met the requirements for cultivation and became a 7th grade master. Although it is a 7th grade, Yu Tianbao was able to defeat the 9th grade and even win the battle, which shows that the high level of this Manxiang Jing is rare in the world. Unfortunately, after the fall of Yu Tianbao, for 120 years, no one in the Yengu Marquis mansion met the conditions for cultivation and was able to successfully cultivate this method. This time, taking advantage of the opportunity to open the door of convenience for Bai Yan, Yuhi took out the Manxiang Jing and handed it to the barbell. Watching the cheerful steps of this guy as he left, Yuhi finally took a long breath, feeling that his whole body had relaxed a lot. The treasure refining technique is very strong, but the problem is that he is very weak now. If he succeeds in barbell cultivation, it is a great guarantee for his safety. Yengu Marquis Mansion, Hengxiang Academy. The owner of the Hengxiang Courtyard is a beautiful lady. Although she is over 30 years old, she only looks like she is in her 20s on the surface. Every move, every frown and smile, she sways and looks seductive. She is the half-mistress of the Yengu Marquis Mansion and the favored concubine of Yengu Marquis, Lu Jingjing. She lay on a soft couch, her phoenix eyes filled with evil spirits, and between glances, there was a unique charm. A majestic middle-aged man, bowing his body and lowering his head, with a slight expression of fear, was the steward of the Hengxiang Academy. Huan, have all the people of Chang'e Gang died? Yes, miss, they have all died. When we went, we had already died for over an hour. The bodies were piled up in the courtyard, with a total of 252 bodies, one of which was not missing. There were also 23 wolf dogs' bodies, and not a single living creature was left. Cutting down the grass and eliminating the root, who is this for? Lu Jingjing murmured softly, her expression becoming more subtle. It seems that the master already knows. This is certain. This kind of thing cannot be concealed from the Marquis. However, the Marquis only killed the Chang'e Gang and did not create any extramarital affairs. I think he doesn't want to escalate the situation, let alone be separated from his wife. I can't believe that Xiaoqi, although not well known and seemingly mediocre, still has such skills. In the end, I underestimated him. I heard that this time, it was mainly because the little girl named Linger next to her had a great deal of strength, saying that she was born with divine power and may have some background. The matter of that little girl is not a secret in the mansion. 10 years ago, she was picked up by the 7th young master on the roadside, and her origin has been investigated very clearly. The descendants of the LV family in Shirlang were involved in a martial arts feud 10 years ago, and were massacred. Only this one person happened to be saved by the 7th young master, and the Marquis has already dealt with everything thoroughly. Lu Jingjing nodded and did not continue the topic. It was indeed admirable to have such a naturally divine little girl by her side. She also wanted to have such a person by her son's side, but this kind of thing is rare. The Marquis' mansion is also a place where rules are enforced, and the rules are strict. This time, she has seriously stepped on the red line. If it weren't for her comfortable service to Yu Bai Yan, I'm afraid there won't be a better life now, and it may even affect my own son. Thinking of last night's warnings, both inside and outside Yu Baiyan's words, she couldn't help but feel discouraged. I underestimated him. He used to behave very mediocrely, but I didn't expect him to pretend. Huan, in the end, it's better not to be caught, especially in the East Court. Marquis has passed this level, but if the East Court finds out, they will definitely pick him out. I understand. Huan bowed and hurriedly walked out of the Manxiang Academy. Lu Jingjing is right. On the Marquis' side, as long as the lady's pillow blows stronger, there will still be some affection, but the one in the East Court, twilight has passed, the osmanthus trees are fragrant, and the lanterns are early on. The beautiful lady stands up from the soft bed, and 2 beautiful maids immediately follow. Xiaoqi, go tell the young master not to rush or cause trouble, everything is up to my decision. Yes, ma'am. A pretty woman, blessed with good health, hurriedly took small steps. End of this chapter.